Hi everyone, it's Sue Plumb here to share another scrapbook process video with you. Today's layout that I am sharing was created for the Challenge Me, Challenge You series that I am doing with my dear friend Gwen Wruck from Created by Gwen. And this is our September episode. And this month we are playing with sketches and colour. So this is the sketch and the colour, so you saw that there, that Gwen has chosen for me. She has chosen green as my colour, and a beautiful sketch featuring 3 photos. So I printed off some photos of my son in his soccer uniform, which is green, so I thought that was off to a good start. Now I have chosen a different sketch for Gwen, and with the help of all of my lovely friends on my Facebook page and also on a poll that I ran on my channel here, we chose a colour for Gwen. So I wanted to challenge Gwen a little bit with the colour this month, just a little bit of revenge for the Christmas theme that she served me up recently. So you will find Gwen over on her channel actually playing with purple. And you can pop over and see her video and her layout that she's created with the sketch that I chose for her using purple. So I'll put the link to that down below. Right, let's get on with my layout here. So you can see that pile of goodies that I had there was a big stack of Vicki Boutin things. I pulled out a whole heap of scraps that I had because I knew there was some really vibrant green in there. I also have pulled out a distress oxide. I've pulled out some enamel dots and different shapes from my stash. I pulled out a green mist, which I wasn't sure if I was going to use. I didn't end up using it, by the way. Spoiler alert right there. And now I'm going to get stuck into the layout here. So I'll give you a rundown what I'm doing. So I've started off with a sheet of smooth white cardstock, and I have actually chosen that yellow star print paper for my background. Now, I decided to distress the edges of this, but you can see that I went a little bit too hard with the distressing tool to start. And I think the reason that my paper tore immediately was because these papers are actually from a paper pad. And if you've used paper pads before, you would know that the papers in the pads tend to be a little bit thinner than a loose sheet of 12 by 12 paper. And I didn't really account for that when I went in with the distressing tool, so I ripped it straight away. So when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, right? So that's why I decided to rip out that chunk there, and I just backed it with a little bit of the green pattern paper that I was going to be using for my feature in the middle of the page. So it all ended up tying together quite nicely. So I really wanted to highlight those distressed edges a bit, and I also wanted to get a bit of green onto this background paper. So I used a foam blender there, and the Distress Oxide colour I am using is Mowed Lawn. So I just ran that around the edges, and I also blended a little bit over the corners and near to the edges of that paper, just as I said, to bring more of that green colour into my background, because I didn't want this simply to be a straight yellow background with a bit of green slapped on top of it. So I'm trying to work green into as many of the elements for this sketch that I can. So there you go. That's basically my background, my jumping off point. If you had a look at the sketch, you would have seen that it had a border on it anyway. So that's why I decided to have that cardstock border. I also like the fact of that white border. It just lifts it a bit. It just makes it fresh. That bit of white just freshens everything up. So, and it just gives, using a cardstock base, of course, gives your page a bit of stability, particularly when you are dealing with these papers from paper pads that tend to be a little bit thinner. So there I go. I'm moving on to my next layer. So, of course, it had to be green, and that was the green paper, as I said, that I'd chosen there. I knew I had this vibrant green striped paper in my Vicki Boutin stash. I'd already used some of it, but thankfully there was enough of this sheet intact that I could use it as that focal piece to run across the page. I did slip in a little bit of navy here. I also had another scrap of that beautiful constellation print paper that was one of my favourites from a while ago. And I did save the scraps of that because I loved the colour of it so much. So I decided to tuck a little bit of that in underneath that green paper just for a little bit of contrast. Now on the sketch you would have seen that there was a horizontal strip running across the page, and my friends who've been watching my channel should be very impressed with my efforts to stick to this sketch today. And I have to say, it's the second layout in a row I've done this for. So if you watch my previous video, which was also a sketch video, you would have seen that I stayed fairly true to that sketch as well. And I'm happy to report that I think I've done it again today. This layout is a lot busier than the one that I shared a few days ago, but I did stay fairly true to this sketch as well. So those photos on the sketch itself, the photo measurements were, the main photo was 3.25 by 4.5 inches, and mine is a little bit bigger than that. And then the two smaller photos on the sketch were supposed to be 2.75 inches square. You can see that I have not used square photos. I have printed off those rectangular photos. And I have to say that of everything on this layout, it was the placement of the photos that gave me the most trouble. So apologies in advance while you watch me fluff around with these photos trying to get the perfect placement. So in the sketch, they actually had the main photo sitting straight on the page, and the two smaller photos were both sitting on angles. So they were both sitting askew from the main photo. And try as I might in my OCD brain to make that work, I just couldn't. I couldn't have them running at angles, and not two of them. So I ended up meeting the sketch halfway. And the top photo I sat at an angle, but the second photo, the one to the right there, I ended up sitting that flush and straight alongside the main photo. So I did, it's not necessarily cheating, because it's not about cheating when you use sketches, right? It's about your interpretation of the sketch. Anyway, back to the layout. I decided that I wanted to pull some more green into my background here. So I pulled out one of my Vicki Boutin stencils. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head which set of stencils these are. One of my keen-eyed viewers may be able to tell me. I can't remember for the life of me, but I wanted to use it because it had this circular shape in it, because I had quite a star theme going on here. And I wanted to pull in a circular shape simply to be representative of the medal that was in my son's photos, and just to break up the stars a bit. So I think that little shape that I've done there, which is sort of like a sunburst shape, I think it did a good job breaking up all of the other shapes on here, and it was a good way to pull some more green into my page. Okay, so working on the layers behind my photos, I've used a doily because it's me. I've actually gone with a yellow doily there because I wanted to have something that I could have used a green one, but there was two reasons I didn't. A, I didn't have the right green, which really is enough of a reason on its own. But the second reason was I wanted something to contrast against that green paper. So I went with the yellow because I thought that tied in really well with the background, even though it gave this page quite a sort of Australian feel with those green and gold colours. In my layers, I've also used another scrap of that navy constellation print paper just to add a little bit of a border around the edge of that photo and just help separate it further from the background. And I've also added some frayed gauze for texture. So that's kind of where I'm up to now. And I'm just about to stick my photos down. You can see when I stuck it down, I ended up sticking that one straight, as I mentioned before. And then I was looking for something to run across that horizontal line. And I thought, well, seeing as I had this star theme going on, I wanted to introduce another colour. And I decided to go, I didn't have the right red that I wanted because I really would have liked that really deep sort of vibrant red that was on the ribbon around my son's neck in the photos, but there wasn't the right red on the star paper that I fussy cut these stars from. So you know what? I just went with whatever was available. I didn't fuss over it too much. Now, I also had this tag, which I believe came from one of Vicky's cut-apart sheets. So the two collections I kind of mixed up for this layout, I believe, are Let's Wander, and I think there's some colour study in there somewhere. There could be another collection in there. Again, my keen-eyed viewers, you may be able to correct me if you can see something from another collection. So I had that tag down there that came from one of the cut-apart sheets. It was green, and it said, "This day was fabulous," which was kind of perfect given the subject of the layout. I fussy cut that out. I tied a little bit of red and white baker's twine, and then I tucked it into the spot under my photo there where they actually did have the journal card in the sketch. So that was me giving myself a round of applause because I actually stuck to the sketch. Now, I've used Vicki Boutin thickers there for the title. I love that scripty font. It was a perfect title when you consider the theme of this layout. And I also had the title in the same place as the sketch. So again, another round of applause for me. Look at me go today. Tell me you're proud of me. I am. So when it came to embellishing the layout, I kept it fairly simple. Most of it, well, pretty much all of it actually, I think was stickers. I had multiple sticker sheets that I had already used stickers from. So I decided to challenge myself to work with those already partially used sticker sheets and see what I could use up. So at this point I was looking for extra text and just little icons. So you can see I found those shoes, I found a camera, there was some arrows with words on them. I did fluff around with these sticker sheets a little bit. I was really looking to see whatever I could use up, but I still wanted it to work on the page, so I was a little bit fussy. Those shoes were a great idea to add on there, given that soccer is so much about boots. So a quick rundown of what the story was here. This was my son's first soccer carnival day, and even though his team didn't win any games on the day, he actually kicked his very first soccer goal on this day. So that's why, despite having no wins on the board, he was pretty happy with himself this day. First goal, it was a big deal, so I thought it deserved a layout. So there you go. A very easy backstory to that one. You can see I'm still fluffing around with those stickers. Like I said, it was a little bit painful, but I am pretty happy in the end how this layout came out. You'll see that green gap actually at the top of the page. It's what I'm going to go for in a minute. I've actually got some chipboard thickers there as well. So the 3 sticker sheets that I had out weren't enough, and I also pulled out these chipboard thickers. I can't remember what collection they're from. I'm sure somebody will tell me all the collections I've used below. Like I said, I have so much Vicki Boutin stuff in my stash here, and because so much of it tends to coordinate well together, I tend to just keep it all together in my stash and mix it up as I go along. So I'm getting near to the end of the layout now. I've actually pulled out, I realised I got to this point and hadn't even considered those extra enamels that I'd pulled out. There were some there that were the right green. I added that little enamel heart onto the camera. I added a few little enamel dots. And then I looked at my backgrounds and I thought, you know what? There's just not enough layers going on here. I should add some stamping too. So I pulled out that rubber stamp that's got the little tiny stars on it, which is from Viva Las VegaStamps. I just pulled out some grey ink. I was going to use black, but I thought the black may have actually been a bit heavy on this page, so I used a grey one. Added some stamping, and that was it. The only thing I had left to do was the journaling, which I did off camera, and you can see that in the still photos coming up in a minute. So there's a look at the layout next to the sketch. I hope now you finish watching mine, you'll pop over and watch Gwen's video so you can see the sketch that I gave to her and see her work with purple. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'll see you next time. Bye.